to another episode of the Ty Brady Way. And today I'm excited to introduce Ralph Groce to the show. We got connected through his book publisher, I think is what he told me earlier, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm excited to hear, why he was inspired to write a book and what his tips and insights are. And Ralph, the floor is yours. The audience, tell them a little about who you are and what you do and maybe what got you here.
Okay, Ty, it is so wonderful being here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and speak to your audience and share a little bit more about myself and who I am and what I'm doing and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, which, by the way, I'm still trying to figure out on some respects. So, presently, professionally, I was recently just named the president and chief operating officer of a startup called Scroobius Incorporated. And the basic premise of Scroobius is to address the underlying inequity with regards to the allocation of capital to startup companies founded by underrepresented founders. We don't describe or define what underrepresented means, but part of that audience is generally women and people of color who have historically had great difficulty connecting with the various means of capital, particularly at early stage capital, venture capital, and private equity capital. And then another aspect of my life is that I am writing a book. It's called We Have Nothing to Lose, A Dark Optimist Call to Action. And the premise around that is way back when I was a toddler and just starting kindergarten, I was asked by my teacher what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, President of the United States. And I'm a person who believes that we speak our reality into existence. That message has always stayed with me. And so here we are with the book.
I want to touch a minute on, the capitalist, because, that is a problem, right? I mean, traditionally, you had to be with the right people and difficult for people of color and especially women to get financing. It reminded me, my wife went to work for a lady that owned a cheer gym, and she had a startup to own a cheer gym, and she needed $25,000. And how she ended up getting the money was she interviewed with a bunch of other ladies that have been successful, and they basically put their money together and loaned her $25,000 so she could start her cheer gym, because you have to have the down payment, all that stuff to get the cheer gym started, liability insurance and all of that. But it was other women that have been successful that pulled their money together to help her, get that financing, because a traditional bank wasn't going to give it to her. She had no collateral, no nothing.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. And one of the lenses that you can look at this problem through is just recognizing the fact that women are half the population of this country. And there is, by some measure, $82 trillion worth of venture capital that is sloshing around through the system at any given time. $82 trillion. Women and people of color get less than 1.5% of that $82 trillion. And then when you start to break down that 1.5%, women get X, white women get X, people of color, men get Y, and women of color get next to nothing. And that's 1.5% of the $82 trillion in this system, this ecosystem. And to think that there aren't unicorns coming out of these demographics. And when I speak of unicorns, I'm talking about the Googles, I'm talking about the Metas, I'm talking about the Apples, I'm talking about really extraordinary ideas for companies that people are coming up with that address real world problems, capitalize on real world opportunities. And to think that, some of these things are dying on the vine simply because of the lack of access to early stage funding that will get these companies off the ground, get them moving, get them growing, and then get them the attention of later stage funding that will allow their companies to provide the products and services that that our country and this world needs. It's a problem, and it needs to be fixed.
Absolutely. So you have you have that going on, right? So I
Yes.
have two questions related to that. So why do you think, well, two things. Is it lack of education? Why is it people don't know there's options? Or, I want to talk about why is the problem there? And then, how does somebody even understand that there's opportunities for them? Like, how do they connect with people that could help them and facilitate them? Obviously, they have to have a business plan, they have to have an idea, all those things. But is it they don't know? Or is it the culture divide and people why is there a problem?
So the first part of that question, and I'm going to take it as a two-part, kind of question. The first part of that is why does this exist? And why this exists, nobody likes to, we're talking systemic bias. And this is not to condemn anyone. This is not to question anyone's values or intentions. But as human beings, we are genetically predisposed to bias. And that's not a bad thing. When we think there's opportunity, we think there's danger, we think there's something, we're acting on our bias, and that's not a bad thing. In this case, the bias is around the perception of risk. And so we see things that, have worked and presume, create a halo effect around those things. This is what's worked in the past. This is what, seems to be working now. And when we see things that we think look like those things, we're kind of predisposed to respond to them in a positive kind of way. When we see something that doesn't look like things that have worked the way we think the world works or has worked, then we start questioning and incorporating presumptions of risk. Well, this doesn't look like that. This doesn't work like that. And so, what's wrong with this? Not what's right with this or what's better about this, but what's wrong with this? And that presumption of risk tends to, our inability to overcome that presumption of risk, drives a behavior that's consistent with, exclusion. And even if we do overcome that presumption of risk, then we want to try to mitigate that risk. Having worked in financial services for most of my career, all of my career, that's one of the things we do. We're in the risk business. But at the same time, we want to mitigate that risk. We want to understand that risk, evaluate that risk, quantify that risk, and then, put things around it that mitigate that risk. The problem and the challenge, though, is that, businesses founded by women actually perform better. They actually work better.
I can tell you the women that I have on my team outperform men 10 to 1. And I see it time and time again. But what I see in my industry is that I'm getting women that typically were stay-at-home moms, had a little bit of a career, or maybe they didn't go to college, and now they're looking to try and make a little bit more money. And, no one's willing to take a risk on them. No one's willing to say, hey, come in, let's teach you Excel and all these programs. But I'm willing to teach them how to sell and how to relate to clients and consumers. And I've got women that make 6 and 7 figures in 4 to 5 years because the relatability factor. They can't do what I do, and I can't do what they do. And the other thing I wanted to point on is when you talked about bias, I think, we are a product of our environment and part of how we were raised, and good or bad or indifferent, we have to be able to distinguish for ourselves, what that bias is, because inherently, when you talk about financial services, they're looking at a P&L, profit and loss statement. And if it doesn't meet a certain matrix, you may get approved or declined. And sometimes you got to go with your gut and feel on the person and be like, hey, I'm gonna risk my dollars on this individual. But it may not meet the exact matrix I'm looking for. Is that something you see as well?
Yeah, and I'll give you an example, Ty, because one of the things I talked about at the very outset when you were introducing me is around this philosophy that I have that we speak our reality into existence. So
Mm-hmm.
you you have personal firsthand experience. Even you just said, I'm going to take a risk on this person. They may not have these requisite skills that I think are necessary to do the job, but I know from my past experience, I've hired women who have outperformed men in my team 10-1. So I'm going to take a risk. That's just
Yeah.
it, Ty. You're not taking a risk. So don't even use that word because that presumption of risk isn't even there. Don't use that word. It's not
I
a
love
risk.
it.
You would be a fool if you didn't hire more because you have all the experience, you have all the data, you have everything you need to know that this is not a risk. If anything, it's the opposite. If you go out and get a guy, you're taking a risk. But we are so programmed and so conditioned that when we see something that doesn't look like what we've seen before, that we start putting all these qualifiers around it, that we almost talk ourselves out of the opportunity that exists. And we got to stop doing that. And that comes from the lexicon that we use, that becomes the behavior that we mimic, and that becomes the systemic bias that pervades everything we do. So, and I don't mean to correct you. Again, I'm not placing value judgments on anyone, but just listening to your lexicon around, I'm going to take this risk. No, you're not taking any risk. You're not.
Ralph, I learned something new today. I love doing these shows because, I use, in previous shows, I said there's three other words that I don't use. Cannot, right? It's either you do or you don't. It's the same thing with try. You do your best because there's no such thing as try. You always do your best. And you don't need, you want. I mean, changing your vocabulary with those simple phrases. And you're right, not taking a risk. I know that they'll perform.
Right.
And it's amazing. I love it.
And I did a commencement speech several years ago at Boston University, my alma mater, and it's interesting what you just brought up because part of the speech I said, I'm going to quote, three, four major sort of philosophers. I'm going to quote uh, George Bernard Shaw, Steve Jobs, Yoda, and Ric Flair. And from Yoda, I said, it's do or do not. There is no
Yep.
try.
That's right.
And so when I talk to teams that I work with and I've led, I correct them. We're going to try to get this. No.
No.
Are you going to do it or not? And if you're not, let's talk about why not and figure out what the obstacles and the hurdles are that will prevent you from accomplishing this task. Well, we hope we can get. No. We're not going to hope. Are we going to get it done or not? And if we're not, let's talk about why not and let me help you overcome the hurdles and obstacles that would prevent us from getting this done. So we're going to get it done. And we're going to use the verbiage in the lexicon that gives us the momentum, gives us, conditions our behaviors towards the directions and the outcomes that we want to achieve. Do or do not. There is no
That's
try.
right. Words are powerful. And I never even thought about using the word risk. And now it's going to change my whole perspective and mindset. Just this simple I learn more from doing these interviews each time I do them, and I love doing it. And the audience loves it. The podcast show is growing like crazy. Let's go on to the next thing here. So you wrote a book. So you help people, women of color, women of finance. Let's close this out. So how do they just get in touch with you? How would they go down the road? Or I think a lot of people, it's knowledge. They just don't know what to do. Like they have an idea, but they don't even know where to go. Because you're not going to go to a bank and you're like, hey, here's my proposal. So how would they start that process? And then let's go on to, why you wrote a book.
Sure. So really super easy. If you go to www.scroobius.com, that's Scroobius with two O's, SCRIOOBIUS, something like that, Scroobius.com with two A's. And your audience will laugh that I can't even spell, but I'm trying to do it off the top of my head. I'm trying to do it quickly. The point is, Scroobius.com provides a platform for founders and investors, early stage investors who are interested in looking at what we call deal flow from these underrepresented groups, because these underrepresented groups represent an extraordinary revenue opportunity for savvy early stage investors. So what we do is we provide this platform for early stage founders to go on to create pitches, to moderate their pitches, to better their pitches, and access to early stage investors who are interested in the work that they're doing, interested in the ideas that they have, interested in the products and services that they're creating. And so it's kind of like Match.com, if you will, for the investment community. We've got founders who are looking for, investment monies, and we've got early stage investors who are looking for the kind of founders who are on this platform. And again, we're not defining what underrepresentation means. So if you're a founder, you got a great idea, get on Scroobius.com. We help you create a pitch. We help you create a great pitch. We help you better that pitch, and then get you connected with the kinds of people who will help you grow your business.
Would that also be true in the same for somebody who wanted to invest in startups?
Correct. So if you are
either or.
Yeah. So you're an angel investor, you're an early stage investor, you work with an investment club, you've got an investment team. Yeah. You can go to Scroobius.com and you will get access to some great founders who have extraordinary ideas and who create great pitches that will help you understand what their business is and increase the quality of your deal flow. And in so doing, increase the revenue opportunities you have with the money you've been charged to invest.
It's a need. I see it time and time again. And, what greater place to go and have a platform where you can either choose to be an angel investor or choose to, learn how to pitch your idea, because it's needed. Every entrepreneur that started a business started somewhere, whether they asked friends or family for money or, borrowed against every asset they had, or, got lucky and somebody gave them money. I mean, you just never know how they started up, but they all have a story. And,
Absolutely.
look at them now. Well, so you got Scroobius.com, and then you wrote this book. What inspired you to write this book?
So, and this is probably one of the flaws with the philosophy of we speak our reality into existence. Speaking your reality into existence as a 4-year-old is probably, nonsensical. But, I said those words way, way, way back then, and they've never left me. And over time, obviously, the idea of, politics and being presidential and all those sorts of things has evolved. And where I am now and where it has evolved to is as I look at the state of our country, as I look at the state of the world today, I think, and it's purposefully not intended to be a political book. So I'm not left leaning, I'm not right leaning, I'm not middle leaning. What I'm meaning is that we need courageous leadership because we have really big challenges, really big opportunity. And some of these things are intractable. And moreover, we are running out of time to address them in responsible ways that will benefit the majority of the people on this planet, the majority of people in this country. So we can't afford to continue to just march down a path of leadership that is not taking courageous action, making courageous decisions, executing courageous plans to address these issues and address these challenges and address these opportunities. We're running out of time. And I give examples of that. The world, the organization that has the world's countdown clock has moved it closer to 12 midnight than they ever have. I think within 15 seconds or so of midnight, based upon things that are happening in Europe, Ukraine, Middle East, etc. Climate change. We just had two major hurricanes happen within the span of 2 weeks in Florida.
Yeah.
The ocean levels are rising. The temperature of the world is increasing. I think last summer, we had the hottest day on the planet Earth recorded.
Yeah.
Anyone who thinks that these things don't matter and that they're not happening is mistaken. We've got challenges with immigration. We've got challenges with gun violence. I'm talking about gun control, but gun violence. I don't think there's any American in this country who thinks it's okay for somebody to walk into a school and shoot 5-year-olds. I don't think nobody's going to put their hand up and say that's okay.
No.
But we're not dealing with issues that would prevent that kind of, our children deserve the right to go to school and not have to worry about, coming home at night. And parents shouldn't have to worry. That shouldn't have to be a concern of anyone. And you just go on and on with these issues. And we need courageous leaders taking courageous action around courageous plans to address these issues. And it's not happening. And so when I say we have nothing to lose, people, I think everybody feels this, but they say, well, I'm just one person. I'm just one guy. I'm just one woman. What can I do? And what I'm saying is that one person can do a lot. There's a story in the Bible that says where 2 or 3 are gathered. And we've seen real world, horrific kinds of things where small groups of people, incredibly committed, have changed life on this planet as we know it. Yeah. It wasn't Stephen Jobs, but he's given credit for having said it. And it's not his quote. But what it says is one of my favorite quotes, is that the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do. And he's so right. Normal people don't think they can change the world. Wow, what can I do? Crazy people think they can change the world. And guess what? They do.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely do.
As I listen to you, Ralph, I think of this. I talk to folks all the time, and they say comments like this: "I'm only one person," or "Where do I start?" And I'm like, you mentioned the verse in the Bible where 2 or 3 or more are gathered. That's how it all starts. If you have a common goal, a common idea, I tell people volunteer. Start with volunteering. Whether it be city council, whether it be county government, whether it's just volunteering for whatever it is, volunteer. And, quit complaining and be a part of the solution. And what I mean by part of the solution is it's easy to complain, but if you're going to complain, come up with a solution, because it doesn't solve anything to just sit back and complain. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't. My uncle said something to me a while back, and the book has a lot of these anecdotes and thinking that got me to where I am. We were working one day. He owns real estate in New York City and did a lot of renovations. He would buy buildings, dilapidated buildings, and renovate the whole building and sell the property. And he was saying to me, we were working in this building one day, and he said to me, good people can't get anything done. Bad people can just get stuff done. Hey, let's go blow up something. Let's go do this. They just get stuff done. Good people can't get anything done. And he's right. Good people just, all the questions, all the politics, all the bureaucracy, all the rules, all the excuses that get in the way. And we just talked about do or do not. There is no judgment. Mm-hmm. And when you put all of this, and again, I believe in the Einstein, spooky action at a distance, all of this stuff matters. There's another phrase in the Bible, and I'm not preaching to anyone or espousing any sort of religion. I think these are philosophical kinds of views, but all things work together. Everything is connected. And what people don't realize is that actions and words and choices are all connected. All connected. So when we say we cannot, you're right, you can't. When we say we can, when you stop to think about it, and again, horrific example, but 19 people on September 11th, 2001 changed life as we know it on this planet.
Yes.
19 people. Not an army, not a nation, not policy, not politics. 19 people changed life as we know it. I just watched over the last weekend, Elon Musk. Again, interesting guy, not talking politics. You can throw him away, but he boosts one of the largest rockets we've ever shot into space, and he catches it in these mechanical devices he calls chopsticks, as a reusable asset. It's unbelievable. It's actually happened because somebody is crazy enough to believe I can do this. Why can't we do this? Why can't we make this happen? And so we're just we're just at a place where the time is running out. Time is running out, and we need leaders who are selfless, who don't care about their agenda, who aren't caring about their legacy, who aren't worried about offending people in a bad way, who want to get something done and get the right things done the right way for the good of humanity. We only have one planet. There is no plan B. There's no plan B. So
Ralph,
if we don't get it
awesome.
right here, we got to
I
fail.
think I have young kids, and I think about what type of environment, what type of land, what type of, what are they going to have? What is it going to look like? Because obviously in the last 15 years, the landscape has dramatically changed. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're more of a global economy just because of the internet and how fast we can get things shipped. And all those things that happened, I love it. Somebody had a crazy idea and that idea came to fruition. And it's those people. And if anybody listen to this, I would encourage you, if you have an idea, pursue it, chase it, and, don't sit back and expect someone else to solve the problem, chase that. And because you just never know who it's going to hit or what nerve that's going to hit. But I mean, I was walking through a grave site, and I don't know if I've mentioned this story before or not. And my wife and I, we participate in a lot of charity events, and my wife was asked to speak at a charity event. It's called Wreaths Across America, and it's for veterans of all wars. And what you do is you buy a wreath and you go set it on a veteran's grave and you say, thank you for your service. And you place the wreath on the grave. And then you have flowers as well. And as I was walking around, it was humbling because you saw people that lived a short life. You saw people that lived a long life. And I just said, as I'm walking behind my kids before my wife gave that speech, and I have two boys, they're 13 and 11. I just thought, what kind of world are we going to leave my kids? And are they going to be asked to fight a war that they believe or don't believe in? Number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is we got to get to a point where we can respectfully disagree,
Right.
and I think it's society in general. It's like, you believe the way I believe, or there's hate. It doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be that way. There has to be divide. There has to be, but you got to be willing to communicate. And there has to be give and take. I've
Exactly.
been married for 25 years. I mean, there's give and take in a relationship, even relationships at work.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't my way or the highway. Wow.
I totally agree, Ty. Totally agree. And that's another point that we talk about in the book. Abraham Lincoln, one of the hallmarks of his administration was that he actually incorporated, dissenting views from the other party into his administration. Yeah, I want to hear that. And I tell a story about, my own personal experience. I'm a CIO, I was a CIO at, several large financial institutions. And, technology is advancing and changing and, driving every aspect of our life. Well, I was confronted with a problem around our ability to deliver new products and services very quickly to the market, to keep up with competition, to keep up with client demand, customer demand, needs, et cetera, et cetera. We were moving too slow. So how do we get faster? How do we bring things to market faster? And there was this practice called Agile, software delivery lifestyle mechanism. And very early on, this was back in 2007, I'm trying to introduce this new practice into our organization and into the company. And I was met with an extraordinary amount of feedback from all sellers. So my business partners were like, no way. My own team members were no way. My own leadership, my own management team, no way. And yet
Wasn't popular, was it? Wasn't popular, was it?
Well, it was, yeah, it couldn't have been more unpopular than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But so me against the world. But, one of the things my father used to say about me was, your problem is you're too dumb to quit. So I don't think he meant it as a compliment, but that's one of my superpowers. I'm too dumb to quit. But what was interesting is that I didn't try to stamp out the dissent. I actually incorporate, tell me why you think this won't work. And I led with science, I led with data, I led with information. And to your point, I didn't try to squash the other side or take retribution because I'm the boss and someone didn't agree with me. No, let's hear what you think about this process. What do you think about this that won't work? What do you think about this that's risky? Let's talk about, again, connecting dots. Where's the risk in this? Because we've tried the traditional way of delivering these products and services, and it's failed. So why do we
Yeah.
think we're going to continue to do the same thing and get a different outcome?
Yeah.
And so we started working and listening, and what happened was we incorporated Agile. But what was great about it is that we also attacked it in a different way. We modified the methodology to fit our organization, our culture, our needs, the outcomes that we wanted to achieve. And so by listening to some of these dissenting points of views and giving them the opportunity to contribute, not only did I get their buy-in, but we wound up with a different set of outcomes that we probably wouldn't have achieved. And it didn't matter that I was right or wrong. I never expressed it that way. Never took credit. Truman says it's amazing what you could get done when you don't care who gets the credit. I don't care. I don't care. As long as we're winning, I don't care who gets the credit. It didn't matter. We got to where we needed to be and exceeded expectations by virtue of coming together, listening to one another, having, a discourse, a respectable discourse, and working through the challenges and the obstacles presented by the points of views that were in the room. And it worked.
I
And we
love it.
changed the company.
So how would somebody get a hold of this book that you've written? I mean, is it on Audible? Is it, is there a pre-launch? I don't know what stages this book's at. Fill the audience in how they would get the book, and then just your last thoughts. And man, so much great stuff. I appreciate you being on, how would they get this book?
Well, let me start my finish by going back to where we began. First, thank you for having me. I so appreciate the conversation that we've had here today. I think what you're doing and the way that you're doing it is just outstanding. I'm going to be a fan of the show moving forward. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your platform. Thank you. The launch date for the book is the 20th of November. It's going to be available in Amazon. We're working on an Audible version of the book. It'll be available on the 20th of November, and you can get it, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, etc. You'll be able to get the book.
Well, I'm definitely a fan of the audiobook. I drive a lot. On planes a lot, travel, all that kind of stuff. And so I love getting an audiobook, and I love going back and listening to some of my favorite chapters. I mean, the last book I listened to was Game Changer, and, I listened to Tim Grover, and, he was Tim Grover's book that was a coach of Michael Jordan and also, Kobe Bryant. Anyways, lots of good points in there, but definitely going to get the audiobook and download that and listen to it and get some more insight on what you were thinking to inspire the world, change the world, and, get people to have common ground. I mean, that's where we got to get back to as society. We only have one planet. You mentioned that a few times, and I'm going to eliminate the word risk. There is no risk, right? Just like there's no word can't, there's no word try, and there's no word need. They're all changeable.
Exactly.
So yeah, I love it. Any of your last thoughts there, Ralph? And again, my pleasure to have you on the show, man. I love it.
Again, thank you. And last thoughts is, let's come together and change the world. Let's change the world. Good people coming together, doing good things to change the world.